Founded in 1991 by patients, the FSHD Society is the largest grassroots network of FSHD patients, their families, and research activists. The FSHD Society offers a community of support, news, and information for the millions of people affected by FSHD worldwide. This is FSHD Society Radio. Welcome to the FSHD Society Radio Show. Thanks for being here on another episode, and as the calendar turns, another year. Can't believe we're strapped in again in another season, another year.
I know, right?
The FSHD Society Radio Show. Wow. This is exciting. I hope everybody had a great holiday. I hope everybody had a wonderful holiday, whatever you were celebrating in December. Hope you enjoyed it with your family, friends. Maybe it felt a little more normal with maybe a little less COVID going on out there. And hope you're all just doing well. Just doing well, survive the holidays, and now you're looking hopefully forward and optimistic in the future instead of pessimistic. So glad you all can be here and spending some time with us, with me and Lee Reynolds here. So many know our faces, I think, based on all the great events we've tag teamed together.
I weasel my way in, don't I?
You do, but it's good. It's a good weasel. It's more like a domesticated pet at that point. Like, yes, I want this. I've welcomed it. Yes.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it. That
probably was not the best analogy at all, really. But that's just
appropriate for me, though. I think
I
can be a little feral.
No. But with all due respect to that analogy, the truth of the matter is that Lee does so much. I can't say it enough that people don't even know. It's just everyone sees the end result, but they don't see the whole process of what it takes to get there. It's very similar to me as like an Olympic athlete. Like everybody watches it in 4 years and goes, oh, wow, they're great. But you didn't see every day, every year what they were doing to get to
I don't know if I would equate the work that I do on this show to an Olympic athlete, but I appreciate the analogy.
That was better than a pet or an animal.
It was better than the feral cat that's been domesticated.
I was trying to pull the nose up on that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. It's but we are not here today to talk about me. So we are here today to turn the tables on you.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So as we were thinking about this new year, we thought, we've been at this for a while. Radio show, the podcast has been around for a while. Maybe it's time we turn the tables on our host and let people get to know you a little bit more.
Wow.
So we're going to turn the tables. I'm going to talk to you instead. How's that?
Okay. That sounds fascinating. I hope other people feel the same way. Right.
Well, you are a part of our community, so it's apropos that you are a part of our first community profile of 2023. So let's first off, where do you hail from? Make sure everybody knows where are you coming to us from. And
that's a great start. I like the foundational question, and that's Wisconsin, and trying to eliminate our Wisconsin accent when I say that, but it's tough too.
Are not successful.
Right. I'm not successful at all. It is very north, as many would know. But my particular more direct location is, the city of New Berlin. We're about 20 miles away from Milwaukee, which is the south east corner of Wisconsin. Not far from Chicago, to be honest with you, about an hour and 30-minute drive, to the big city.
And this fancy studio, where is that?
Yeah. If you really want to pinpoint all the way down, it is, in my home, in the basement. And this little studio corner has evolved from one part of the room then to another. And then I've shifted things and changed the background just a little. But yeah, it's just a home studio. That's how I like to say it. But really, it's the basement. There's no window. There's no window. So I do those long, telethon type. I have no idea. I mean, it could be snowing outside when we do it in September. I have no idea, and I just kind of get barricaded in it. However, it does equal then a lot of focus. There's very little distraction. Every once in a while, though, because it's in my home, I get worried like someone above me making too much noise, or every once in a while, and I think he might have made a couple appearances that people might not know. It might almost be like an Easter egg thing. My guys might have to go back to like the older
The
or
old
more
video
recent-
files.
Yes, video files on YouTube, and see if you can see my dog Cooper right about here. He'll,
Cooper does
come
occasionally
through,
make an
and then
appearance.
he takes off. Yeah, and his tail is curled, so you'd be like, see this tail, and then see this tail, and then he's gone.
Yeah, Cooper does sneak in
Yeah,
from time
he
to time.
does sneak in. So
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
So it looks pretty professional. You got a cool little soundboard there and a great mic and the headset,
Yeah.
So
I like my gear.
I would like our listeners to hear the story of sort of how this all got started, because this is not what you do for a living, right? This is a side gig.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about how you sort of got into podcasting, and more importantly, the FSHD Radio podcast.
Yeah, because eventually the two did link, but one came before the other. At least my knowledge of FSHD was after podcasting. So when I had this, I worked at a medical equipment supplier. I always had these great conversations with people I worked with, and someone said, "You should have a podcast." And I'm like, "What the heck's a podcast?" And then once it was described to me, I thought, "Well, that's fascinating." Researched it, and thought, "Well, that'd be a fun hobby." And this was like 15 years ago.
Oh, wow.
12 years ago, something like that. It was a while ago, before podcasts were just saturated everything and everywhere. And most people, like my, question to that gentleman that told me I should have one, what is it? And that was the response I got from a lot of people once I started one as a hobby.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't know what it was. I had a hard time even creating it. Didn't know. I mean, the microphone I had was a USB mic. It was in the same room, but I had a cart table, no noise, canceling or, bounce panels up or nothing. So everything was echoey and sounded horrible. And I came up with an intro. I obsessed over how that should sound. You had to be perfect. And once again, this was not my profession. So I had no idea how to do sound editing. I had no idea how to do any of that. So I think my first episode was an hour of me just talking, no guest. I had like 3 topics that I found. One was sports related. And it might actually kind of pinpoint the year. I think it was when like LeBron made the decision. And that was one of the, to like move to Miami. That would kind of give you the year of when that episode started. And then it was called the Rec Room Show, kind of an all talks, all politics, that evolved into internet radio stations were really big then when this started taking off. So as that show grew, it turned in from 1 hour by myself to 2 hours weekly, from one guest to 2 guests to guests from all over the globe, all different types of topics. And I think the tagline was no topic off limits, no opinion too bold, or something like that. And I had a band in studio one time, and
Really?
Yes.
I didn't know any of this, Tim.
I had a band in studio that all, they didn't really play any instruments. We just played their music. And it was like people I would know, I thought was interesting, or, would be interested to talk to or talk about what they do. I wanted them. It didn't matter. I had a psychic reading done on air, and then it got picked up by All Radio X out of Colorado. He wanted the show, so we would broadcast live out of his server, internet radio. All NEO Community Radio out of Northeast Ohio took it in syndication, and they would spin it on Sundays. And then they wanted another show from me in Ohio, so I did it was called Your Alternative Radio, and I just spun music of bands that like no one heard of yet, and I was like trying to be fresh and cool, and give them an hour of like these songs, and that was all pre-recorded. At least that one was. So I would be like out in my yard on a Sunday doing work, and I'd hit NEO Community Radio on my phone and listen to my show, because partly I hate listening to them. Like I rarely ever listen back to what I've done, not because I don't mind the sound of my voice, or that's not it. I get really particular of myself. Oh, I'm saying that too much, or I'm making this noise too much, or whatever. But I was listening to it on that one day, and then my brother happened to be over at the time, and he was like, "Is that you on your phone?" And I'm like, yeah, it is. Yeah. So it was just kind of one of those moments, where someone's like, "You're on the radio?" I'm like, well, kind of. It was definitely, and all that kind of went away, because taxes went up on those stations and this and that, and they all kind of fizzled. So now you have your iHeart radios and those kind of things. So it was great. I rode the wave of it. It was awesome. I turned the lights off literally on the studio, because at the time all that started to fall apart. The show ran its course. My wife went back to school, and it was unpredictable, and the show had to be predictable. We had to have it every week. So that's kind of what I did. I just flipped the light off.
Fascinating.
But I left the studio, like when your kid moves out and you don't change the room,
Right. So where in all of that,
Yeah.
when did that sort of hobby, that work, that energy intersect with FSHD? So when in that trajectory, when in that course was your FSHD
Like,
diagnosis?
when did they collide, right?
Yeah, when did those two things collide? That's really interesting.
Yeah. So when like many that have FSHD, right, things are off in your body. And why am I not moving like I thought? I was 40 and I was absolutely obsessed with finding an abdominal muscle in my body. I was doing workouts like crazy. I'm like, I must be able to create something here. I'm tired of having dad body. I'm going all in. I mean, I was working out twice a day, 6 days a week, either in this basement that we're sitting in now where a treadmill is and stuff, running like crazy, whatever. Nothing was happening. And then I had shoulder pain on top of it. And I thought it was from coaching baseball and this and that. 4 doctors later, I'm being told, well, you have a form of muscular dystrophy. What? And like everybody, it's like you get, no diagnosis is, there's no hope. There's no cure. There's no treatment. I didn't even get a pamphlet. Off you go. So onto Dr. Google you go to see, like, how do I do this? And in that diagnosis process, I tackled a lot of that alone. I thought the whole time that it's not going to be a big deal. It's not going to be a big deal. I'm sure it's a rotator cuff. It's not a big deal. I'm in front of a neurologist. I'm sure it'll be no big deal. So when I do get this diagnosis, and I recall this very cleanly because there was a doctor prior, that had me stand, and I've told this story before, where I'm in front of a mirror and this doctor is saying, Tim, when you see yourself, do you see something wrong or do you see yourself? And that profound question, that simple, profound question, I was like, I see myself. He's like, nope, there's something wrong. And I'm going to show you what. And he did. He physically showed me, nope, your shoulder blade should do this and that. Oh my goodness. And then, off I went on that doctor journey and so forth. So when I finally got that final diagnosis of, we believe this is a muscular dystrophy, and not even quite sure yet which one or type, I remember sitting in the doctor's, parking lot, the doctor's office parking lot, done with that, watching people walking in and out and saying, there's no way in hell I'm the only person that's had this happen where I walked in one way and I came out something else.
Yeah.
Like, it was a moment I'm like, I'm not going to be selfish right now and say, woe is me, blah, 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 blah. This sucks. I don't even know what this is going to mean, but this is definitely life-changing, but I've always had it. That was clear. And I've been living and adapting. So what are we going to do about it? So, you make a conscious choice. Like I say, you're going to be loud about it, I thought to myself, or are you just going to be quiet and just move on? Well, obviously, I chose to be a little bit louder. I wanted to see what I could do. What did this mean? And then when the FSHD title of it came about, that was the form, then to Google I went. FSHD Society is what I found. And I was searching like mad. By then, podcasts were popular. Where's their podcast? And I'm like, they don't have a podcast? And I literally thought to myself, that is insane. How do you not have a podcast? Like, I thought everybody started doing this. So I just, sent one like quick paragraph email to the info at type thing. Yeah. And I thought, there's no way in hell they're going to read this, but I'll try. And I think it was like, it wasn't that long. And it was June that contacted back, and it felt very meant to be. She said it was being talked about, didn't know how to implement one. Mm-hmm. What were my thoughts? I think I gave her a demo. I'm like, this could be like your intro. And then I'm thinking, guess with the disease, scientists fighting it, bring them together. I don't know. I think the content kind of speaks for itself. Yeah. And then, kind of here we are.
What year was that? That was
about 7 years. I'm 47. So it was like 7 years ago. Yeah. I'm not sure when it completely, went up off the ground officially from that point, but maybe it's 6 years.
Go back and look. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the format's changed a while over the years. So initially they were all live, right? Did it start where they were all live in the very beginning?
I think we did. We were on Blog Talk Radio, which you can still, I think, find those episodes there, even though we moved them all anyway, pretty much, I think, to Spotify and all that. But that's kind of where we started because we wanted a call-in type option, and Blog Talk Radio offers that. And it was interactive that way. So it was live that way. And then we shifted it to Facebook. And then that's when the video side came in. So I think in the beginning, I don't believe it was even videoed. I don't think. And I always find it fascinating because I'm one of those people too, that like, you want to see the person doing it. You want to see the person doing the show. Hence why I like a bigger board. I want you to see from a viewer if you can, the lights or me mess with the dials or
just
whatever.
make it really interesting.
Yeah, because it's like when I watch the Dan Patrick Show, which is kind of what my background is copied off of, is his set. It's like I see their producers working. I love that.
Yeah,
and they're all interacting too, which is why I love it now that Lee jumps on, right? Because that's like the Dan Patrick Show. His producers are part of the show. They're, that's the interesting dialogue on top of the guests, on top of everything else. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely evolved, and now we're more to the recorded format for the sake of the fact that it is almost better, right, in the marketability, and podcasts are meant to be on demand listening,
So I think it's been really interesting so you'd already been doing this for a few years before I came into connection with the FSHD Society and got to know you. And so I'm fascinated about this because there was life before me. Of course there was. But in my brain, you and I've never had the conversation of so much of what was happening before I met you. And when I met you and started helping a little bit, when I started doing some of the marketing work for the FSHD Society, it was not long before then COVID hit and the world shut down. And then things really got interesting for the show,
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about what happened during that whole COVID year.
It was like we all are master adapters, and FSHD Society, those that are on staff that have it or not, I think are master adapters. And it was, okay, how do we adapt this? For me, selfishly, folks, I was laid off. So man, I was bored. I was like, dude, I could jump on the mic more than I am. Like, why don't I fill my boredom with this? And I was listening to a lot of what FSHD Society was bringing out more and more and more. And I kind of wanted to be a part of that. I'm like, hey, we can do more. We can do more episodes, like once a week, that people get connected and this and that. And that's, I think, where that went, right? We decided, let's do more, get more connection. And I knew that when we were doing it once a week, unless it really drew a lot of attention and demand, that it would probably, as COVID went away, we all hoped that would probably go back to its original format at some point. But for me, you got to give your audience, hence your people, your community, what they want. And I think it's connection in this state, in what we do here is that connection. And I thought people needed that more than ever there. I know I did. And so to offer that and say, hey, let's just pivot this. Let's just give it a little bit of more, maybe different flavor.
Yeah, I think it was really interesting because when we realized COVID was not a quick thing, right? It was not going to go away quickly. It was not a couple of weeks. It was going to drag out.
Yeah.
We were all talking about, what do we do? How do we keep our community growing? We had just launched the chapter program. So at the late 2018, so this whole interconnectivity of our community across the country was new and was just starting to grow. And then everybody gets shut up at home. We thought, well, we can't just not do all these things. We can't just not hold walk. We can't just not have chapter type events. So how do we do things differently? And everything switched to virtual and lots of time on Zoom. And that was that was the year we did the all virtual walk.
Yeah, that was fun.
We'll talk about that in a second, but I think what's really interesting is how willing you were to just be that place where people could connect. And so for those that don't know, Tim, you switched to weekly live shows that were broadcast live and streamed straight to Facebook.
Yeah.
And then people could come in and chat in the comments. And we had a real loyal, we have people that still talk about that and say, when I was completely cooped up at home, completely separated, that was the place I could go for connection. And they talk to each other in the chat. They come and they talk to you and post questions. You need to answer them live. And
I love that. Yeah, there's no question. Like when I did even my own show prior to FSHD, that is the element I do like, is the interaction. I've always liked like a call-in type format. I want to hear your opinion, that kind of stuff, and like hear that. There's of course a risk, back when I did the show, like I hit the live button and I didn't have a screener. So I was like, let's hope this person doesn't completely go crazy.
Little excitement.
Right,
never know what's going to happen.
Hello. Yeah. So, I think that's what people needed. Yeah. And I think it was really cool. It was so much fun, to be honest with you. And I think we also needed that. We needed fun.
Yeah. We need some connection and some community and some fun. And our community's so lucky that you were there and that you were willing to step in and do it and create that connection for people that we would not have had, without you already having put your hand up and been in the space to say, let's do this podcast.
Yeah, I mean, it was already there. Let's just turn on the on button more.
Pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So I remember distinctly, we're sitting in virtually, we're not in the same room, we're all on Zoom or Teams or something, and talking about, this COVID thing's not going away.
Mm-hmm.
We're only at year 3 of the walk and roll, which is a pretty critical juncture, for any kind of event. You kind of, in the world of nonprofit fundraising, right? If you can get past year 3 and you can be successful in your 3rd year, you can count on a pretty good growth trajectory in terms of keeping people engaged and involved. If year 3 flounders, it doesn't bode well for you. And that's good anywhere in the space. Like that's a kind of a critical growth point. We thought, well, we can't just not have this. We won't be able to get it back off the ground again. So what do we do? So we're sitting around, on this Zoom call, and the whole team is like, what do we do? And I don't remember who said what to who or where, but somehow it was like, here's what we're going to do. And you popped into my head. I'm like, oh, we're going to do this. We still got to bring people together. So what if we do this 4-hour live stream and we go coast to coast and people can call in? And, we started talking about how do we do this all virtual event? When the whole point of a walk and roll is to bring the community together. And now we're like, we're going to do all virtual, all in one day, all across the country. What's going to be the glue that binds, that bring them together? And you came up and we sort of decided for you, but we weren't even clear for you. Yeah. And honestly, that year, we had a huge jump in growth, a tremendous sense of connection with the community, the call-ins from coast to coast. It was this, we'll never have huge walks with thousands of people with a rare disease that's
right.
Just to keeping with the numbers. We just, that won't, it's not, that will never happen because of just how many people are directly impacted in any one community by FSHD. But we got a sense of it that year, in a year that I think we needed it most, when people felt so isolated and alone. There was this great sense of connectivity, and the fundraising went through the roof that year too. I mean, we pulled our projections way back. We scaled back on so many things. And I don't know, I've brought this up to you before, we've talked about it before, but I don't know if you really know, embrace in your soul, like the fact that that would not have been possible were it not for you and your role in the book. Would not have happened. If we didn't have the podcast, it wouldn't have.
You would have did it.
No, we wouldn't have. It wouldn't even come to mind. Like, if we didn't have an existing podcast, if we didn't have you that we knew we could trust to do it, if we hadn't already been doing some of the live format stuff, the idea never would have come about. We never would have been able to pull it off. It wouldn't have happened. Like, I don't know what would have happened that year, And so, that's important. Yeah. Like, own it. Embrace that. Swallow it,
I know. It's tough for me to be like, yeah, that's me. It's like,
I mean, yes, it was a team effort, and lots of people and our volunteers across the country did ridiculously amazing amounts of work to still connect their communities locally. And that's not to minimize the work of anyone across the country that just kept rolling their sleeves up and said,
they kept pushing forward regardless. Yeah.
But the glue that pulled it together was that live stream that year.
Yeah, I did feel like a hub,
Absolutely.
In the middle, and people just kind of, and that is such an honor to be able to play that part, to be that. That is by far one of the most, rewarding parts of sitting in this chair. Granted, it's in my basement, as we described, in Wisconsin. But to have people from all over the world, possibly watching, but then have everybody across the, FSHD society chapters all, come in on that day. It was goosebump moment after goosebump moment, just to be connected. And in that time, that year, it's like, finally, there are people out there still pushing on, trying to do this and work through it. Yeah. Yeah.
At that time, I was in my basement too. So we were basement to basement. I've since moved my office upstairs. I kicked a kid out of the house. I didn't kick him out. He grew. He launched. He went on his own. So I took over an upstairs bedroom now for my office. But at the time, I think we were both basement to basement. I think we had these massive spreadsheets of who's coming in when, and people were texting and calling to say, okay, because we were all just coming in live from we'd never done anything like that before. And it was a little terrifying, but I'm a jump in the deep end kind of crazy person. So everybody kept saying, how are we going to do it, Lee? And I just would smile and say, it's going to be fine. Inside, I had no clue how we're going to pull it off.
100%. Because that is definitely one of those moments where, since you've never done it before and you're in the act of a live event anyway, there is really only so much rehearsal or prep you can do.
Right.
You just have to let it be and let it flow and let it be its own, you know? I've always said that, like, people will say to me, how can you hit, like when I would do those live shows often, and they're, how do you do that? Like, how do you just, like, what if you say the wrong thing, or what if you stumble? So
you just keep flow
like,
going.
It's already live. It's already out there. Let's go. You got to be willing to be vulnerable. Yeah. And that's what's fun about it. That's what's fun about it. Yeah.
I agree. I think it's a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoy it immensely. Obviously, since I keep weaseling my way into your show.
Yeah, but people don't realize, like, okay, the first telethon thing, right, that we did, you know, the walk and rolls was huge with the COVID, and then within there was like that telethon event.
Yeah, the very first Giving Tuesday
I'll
event.
do the telethon event again.
That first Giving Tuesday event was totally your crazy idea.
It was. That's my fault.
12 hours solid that first year, Tim.
By myself.
Yeah.
Yes. And if people recall, those that saw that, I mean, I just had my cell phone, and I literally had a break in between every single guest for a couple minutes and hope to God that the next guest was going to answer the phone. Yeah. So it's just, all right, thanks. Boom. Hit the break. Turn the mic
Call
down.
the person.
Call them. You set? Yep. Okay, we're coming back. Click. And I had the camera on the whole time because I thought maybe that's what people would want to see. Let's see Tim get stressed. Yeah. And, you know, and it was fun and it worked. And to everyone's credit, I don't really remember there being any real glitch. Like,
I don't think so.
All the equipment worked. Every person answered their phone. Everyone was ready. It was awesome.
That's pretty.
I was absolutely exhausted, and I felt like a zombie the next day. But
sure,
it's a good exhaustion. You know, good. Yeah. Like, I spent every energy cell I had to do that, and that was fun. And I hope it meant something. I hope it did something. I hope it.
It was a pretty amazing.
Energy made some difference, and it was fun. Yeah.
But every year on Giving Tuesday, the staff always says, well, I don't get a lick of work done. Everybody, you know, sits around and watches the show all day. I mean, they're trying to multitask and do other things, but
must see.
It's must see, must listen, right? Yeah. It's just really, really great. So.
That's why when you stepped in, you say, you know, knows your way. I was like, oh, thank God. Because that producer person, I mean, that's a real job. You know what I mean? Like, on the radio, like, that's what they do. They pre-do the caller, they got them prepped, and they put you on hold, and they put you in so that the host can just do that. I mean, that is huge.
Yeah, we've definitely improved the system and the flow, and it's definitely, you know, grown a lot over the years. So then it's grown, it's changed a lot. In 2022, we went from, we start now doing, now we do 2 episodes a month, right?
Yeah,
so we've got the community profiles, which is sort of bread and butter, how we got started. And I just think those are so powerful. And now we do the Hot Off the Press, which is sort of a short form show, sort of telling you the new and exciting things that are happening.
That's fun that way. Yep.
Yeah. It's grown and changed a lot over the years. What do you sort of hope when you think forward the next couple of years? Where do you hope the show goes?
Yeah. You know, when you ask that question, I always think of, I have a baseball organization or business, and I'm in business with 2 of my very dear friends in that. And one of them, his name is, I'm going to say his name, Mike Palmer. And he's a very good business brain. But he loves to say, you put the goal out in front of you, and that's what we're going for. Mm-hmm. And then everything will just kind of line up as we go. And for our baseball business, you know, we're going to build this facility here, not build, but rent it and create it inside. And he's like, my goal is, he's already got the cake picked out for opening day. And when we open the facility, I got the cake. That's our goal, to get to the cake. Okay. Awesome. So then I say, in this, to answer your question, in the same matter of fact, my goal is, last episode, my goal is cure. We did it. Lights out. Done. And then, just like when I shut it down last show, flip the light off. Maybe that's the last episode. Just goes dark. Done. And then you know, we move on. We move on to other things. Maybe do another podcast. Who knows? That's my goal. I'm trying to get to the last episode. I want to know what, I already kind of can visualize what that's going to look like. How do we get there? You know, I mean, I know it's a big goal, but that's
an awesome goal.
That is the goal.
I think it's an amazing goal. I think we all share that goal, right? I think we talk about that around the office too, say, we want to get to the point where we don't need to be around anymore.
Yeah.
We're kind of working to put ourselves out of business.
Yeah. I mean, it would be bittersweet to some degree, right? All the connections I've made, the people I've talked to, all the experiences, it becomes more of a memory than anything instead of this, what's the next episode going to look like? Yeah. But there's such a great reason why, that's why I'm passionate to keep it going. I'm passionate to want to continue to do it. I get irritated when something stands in my way to get there, or feels like negative resistance. I'm like, why? Aren't we on the same page? And if we all can concentrate on, like, don't you want to be watching that last episode? I get up, hit the light off. Maybe Cooper sneaks in one more time, but and that's it. Yeah. And that's it.
Yeah. Oh, now I'm a visual thinker. So now I got that in my head. That's now, I got that in my sights now too. Absolutely. Absolutely. So you've had some pretty amazing guests over the last few years. I won't put you on the spot to name names necessarily, unless you just want to. But what are some of your favorite sort of moments?
Oh man, that is on the spot.
Yeah. I mean, you've had some funny conversations. You've had one or two. We've had to put a special,
disclaimer.
Disclaimers on a couple of bits of content. Right. We had some tearjerker moments too. Yeah. But what are some of your favorite moments over the last few years?
Yeah, it's more like the moments, and maybe you'll be able to help with more of the pinpointing of the actual guest's name. But I think it was during the telethon. It was a young woman that was on, and she basically made me lose it because of her story. I was like, oh, even now thinking about it, you start to build it up again. It's like, oh, just to hear the raw, real, this is what's happening to me. And then be vulnerable enough to share that over this kind of platform to someone that she'd never talked to before. It was just remarkable. So to like go through those barriers to be able to release that out was just unbelievable. I mean, it was just unbelievable. And then I think I got a lot of positive feedback. We had a couple of funny people on, but a comedian, Romero, I think, right? People loved that episode. That got a lot of chatter. I loved that. Yeah. And then of course, the one that was kind of almost like, okay, we're going to talk about a sensitive part about dealing with disabled for men in particular, that this has to be done. I was like, are we really going to be able to hear this?
Yes. We have a little chat about that. We thought we were going to put a little explicit disclaimer on that one, but it's real. Yeah. It's not, you can't, there are many aspects to living with a chronic illness. There's many aspects to living with FSHD. And, that episode dealt with human sexuality and how does the disease impact it. And it was like, we're going to go there because this is the reality of what people deal with, right? You can't gloss over it. So I was proud of that one, and we thought, we're not editing out. We're just going to put a little disclaimer. We're letting it go.
There's no doubt. I mean, I love the scientists and all, for sure. I want to hear about what's happening.
Yeah.
And that's great. And I've listened to other podcasts in the realm of FSHD that does, hone in on the science. But selfishly, and with all due respect to those conversations and great interviews we've had or other podcasts kind of lean into, man, you know what, dude? I've heard enough about science. I get it. Man, this ducks for, and this sucks. Okay. And I know you guys are all working super hard, and that really is the focus. But it's kind of like when I listen to a physical therapist talk to me about nutrition and stuff, it's like, oh my gosh, okay, fine, I got to eat better. I want to hear the human side.
Yeah.
I want to hear the why. Why is the science important? Why who does it affect? It affects people. And I'm all about the people. I'm all about the community. And that's why I love the fact that this show does that. It brings them to the forefront, all walks of life. And yes, the science is of course important. We will continue to have them on and hopefully sponsor. I don't want to irritate anybody that way. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying for me personally, and if I was listening, and if I would listen to every single FSHD Society podcast, but the ones I'd probably listen to first and more excited about are the ones about the people that have the disease or the parent or the loved one with, that's helping the person, all all that human element. I mean, that's what I want because that's relatable to me. That's the position I hold within the disease is that. And to me, those are the episodes, you know.
Well, and I think what I really appreciate when you do have scientists on and reps from the pharmaceutical companies that are working on treatments and a cure, or the academic researchers that are still in the lab trying to continue to unlock, you know, the mysteries of the disease so that the treatments and cure can move forward, is the human aspect you bring to the conversation. So sometimes you'll say on air or something, well, I'm not really a scientist, or sometimes you're queuing up a guest for you, but like, I don't know, can I talk to this person? Because I don't really know the science of it. I always say, absolutely. That's the best part of it, is because you ask really great follow-up questions or tease it apart and say, I don't really know exactly what that means, or I don't really understand. Help me understand, what does this mechanism you're working on do? Or where does this therapy you're hoping to develop, where does it attack the disease, or where does it hope to have impact? And what you do is you break it down. That's, to me, that's a benefit. The benefit is not, you know, when all the super smart people in the room talking to each other about one thing or another, it's like we all get lost. It's
funny, like every room I walk into, that happens.
It's that ability to break it down and put it in real human terms and everyday terms that we can all understand. Because the important thing that I think we try to do through the work of the FSHD Society, through the show, is answer the question, why?
Right.
Why does this matter? Why do I care? Right. Why should I tune in? Why should I pay attention? Why should anybody out there that's not, that is impacted by FSHD, why should they care about this thing that we're talking about?
Right.
What's in it for me?
Yeah.
You know, and if we're not answering that question for our audience, what's in it for me?
Yeah.
You know, what's the importance to me?
And what's the importance of the science?
Right.
You know, and I understand science draws people because, you know, what they're listening for, at least I would imagine, is they're listening for the nugget of when's the cure coming? When's the treatment coming? And their ears are searching for that nugget of information that might not come. Yeah. But what you always will get is an uplifting story about how someone's dealing with it and they're going forward anyway. Like your Amy Becky or the people like that. I'm doing it and I don't care. I can't do this anymore, but I can do that. And I think that inspires. The science is hope. There's no question. And we need to know what that is and where we're at. But to me, the main focus should be about the people that science will affect and how it's going to make their life better. It's very similar to when I am in this baseball world that people know I am about, but I always get it down to that. Like people talk about the science of hitting and the launch angle. But for youth baseball, I always stop and go, coaches, these are people's children that they're trusting you to have for 2 hours a week minimal. Not, you know, and that's what seems to snap their minds. Whoa, that's right. Same with this. This is people that this disease is affecting, not just a Ducks for and talking in numbers. You know, it's people. Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of the people, we put something out on our social on Instagram this weekend and asked for this past weekend, asked some folks. We got a few questions from some of your listeners that I thought I'd throw at you here before we wrap some things up. So let's see, what are some things that we think? While giving the caveat that you are not necessarily an expert, but your opinion on what sport might be suitable for someone with FSHD. You work a lot in sports. You're big in baseball. Wow. Yeah, an interesting question. That's an interesting question. What sport? Huh. I guess it all depends where, as I call it, my wheelhouse of strength still exists.
Yeah.
Or balance, right? Like I can still throw batting practice, no problem, because I don't have to reach my arm up. No problem. Great. In fact, if anything, my arm never gets sore. People just ask.
Really?
Yeah, they're like, that is bizarre. Your shoulder? And I'm like, no, because it's in this position it's meant to be in, and I don't stress it, and it just the way I go. Yeah, I mean, I threw BP one time at Field of Dreams, literally for 4 straight hours, to like random people. Yeah, and it was like, I think that was even before I knew I had the disease. Anyway, so the fact is that for me, still throwing a ball is fine, depends on where you're at. But if I go like do workouts or that kind of stuff, I love ellipticals, exercises that are going to be impactful, right? Because my legs aren't the best and this and that. So, and like, we all, at least I feel like, have lack of agility. So that makes it tough, like with sports. So, man, that is a tough one. I don't know. Is like playing pool? Is that a sport? You know, I don't know, maybe like that one. No.
I think that's a hard one because
it is a hard one because it's like it can be different, right, from every person.
FSHD is such a spectrum, it impacts people so differently.
But I would think like bicycling as a sport, I think that's probably really good and safe to do. I would totally look at that. I'm not gonna lie, I've thought about, and maybe it's dangerous, but I used to play hockey too a little bit, and I've had this like itch to hear the blades, hear the puck.
Oh wow!
The stick. I'm like, man, I wonder if I could still do it a little bit, because it takes less effort with the legs. If I just get move,
that's really
I can glide. I might not be fast, but can I still get the hip turn to skate backwards? That kind of stuff. I don't have to put the stick high. It's always low. So it's like, maybe I could still possibly do that. The thing is, hockey's tough on your back, so it's like got to be strong in your trunk, and that's kind of where I'm getting weak.
Well, it's like George Pollock, who's a member of our community on the board with our Florida chapter, works there, but he cycles across the country.
Yeah,
and because that's something that for him, he's got a rhythm and a pace that he can keep up with. Cycling's excellent for him. It might not be for somebody else, and so I think what I'm hearing you sort of tease out is spend some time getting to know your own body. And how you're impacted and what works and where do you feel like you still,
and like don't get caught up in like where can I get in a competitive sport. Don't let that dictate. Where can I get in a fun, comfortable sport that my body can do?
Again, I think the big thing I've picked up on in the last couple of years is this conversation that lots of the community is having across the board is just that old advice of you have FSHD, it's a muscle weakening disease, a degenerative disease, go home and don't do anything, don't tax your muscles, is really actually pretty bad advice.
Yeah.
So again, disclaimer, I'm not a doctor, you're not a doctor, everybody should consult with their medical team, but I think there used to be this pretty strong advice of don't go home and don't tax your muscles. And what the community is telling us, what the patients are telling us is that's not really true. We found that they're leading the way and saying, I'm actually getting great benefit from right-sized, appropriately leveled activity that keeps me moving. And so I'll give a little plug, for our Feeling Fit with FSHD group we launched last year. They meet twice a month. We have folks from really across the globe that are a part of the Feeling Fit group, and they come and talk about the various exercise and activities that they're doing.
Yeah, they're great.
They're helping people find what is the right exercise or sport for them, which is much like how you just said, put your hand up and said, I want to do a podcast. It's a thing I'm interested in. Let's launch one. That's how the Feeling Fit group came about. Folks in the community said, we want to be able to get the word out and help people find the exercise and fitness regimen that works best for them. And it's a group of folks that are leading out on that group and bringing to bear, their knowledge and expertise to bear for the community.
Yeah, they're pioneers, right? Going against the grain of previous what we thought was the right advice. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So here's a softball I'll throw at you. Janet on Instagram says, I'm from Pittsburgh and curious about your Steelers items.
Nice. Well, thanks for the question. Thanks for watching so that you know that they're Steeler items.
Yeah.
I get that too, because when they find out, wait, you don't broadcast out of Pittsburgh? Like, nope. Because there's been I've had some Packer references and behind me, some baseball Milwaukee Brewers stuff once in a while. And so, born, raised in the state of Wisconsin, born in Manitowoc, raised in this area. Never been to Pittsburgh except driving through to get to DC. So the whole Pittsburgh Steeler thing, my godmother, Aunt Margaret, was a great woman and a lot of energy. I used to go to her house to do pre-Christmas shopping, she'd call it and stuff. And then she'd take the items I picked out and then she'd be like, now you got to forget. And then a month later, I'd open them up. Oh, I totally forgot about this. We'd have those ritual events and stuff.
Yeah.
And good memories. And, and in one of those Christmases, she gave this little Steelers care package to me, so it had I think it was actually like a Steelers garbage can. It had stuff of different Steeler type memorabilia jammed in there and a terrible towel hanging off maybe at the time and just a whole bunch of stuff. I don't remember all the details what was in it, but what I knew was the logo. I loved it. I loved the colors, and because I was pretty young, and it came from my godmother, so it came from a real kind of nice place. And I kept that garbage can and this and that. And I just kind of adapted into it as I got to know sports more, football more. And I was like and I slowly got more into the Steelers, as I got older. And then that's where kind of the root of it is, and to where it is now. Yeah.
Awesome. That's great. I love it. All right. This is going to be our last sort of, I picked our 3 chapters. Well, what is the best piece of advice you've ever received or given? This is from Instagram. The Beautiful Gods is their handle. So
The Beautiful Gods.
Yeah, whoever you are, good question. So,
wow. What's
best
the best
piece of advice you've
I
received or given?
Or given?
That's
Okay.
that's a tricky one.
Definitely received. I mean, I don't know if I've given good advice or not, right? Sometimes I'm not around to see the outcome.
Fair,
like,
fair point.
What's going on, and I don't know if it worked out.
Fair point.
Yeah. So I assume it was good advice, but received the best advice. I would say, a lot of my brother passed, but best advice did come from him. He said, find your tribe. That's simple. And when I look back at like my coaching books that I've read, there was one particular coach that used that word. And he said, sometimes you don't want to call your team like a family, because not everybody's family is that great. It was a tough upbringing. And that's not a good reminder of why you stick together. But a tribe is different. And he explained why. Can't remember the book exactly right now, but and then, later my brother would say that because he was, his own tribe for a while, no question. And then he went to Chicago, moved there, 20 years he lived there, and he definitely found his tribe, And that's my advice for people. Find your tribe. Who are the people that, raise you up, not bring you down, the people that share your goals with you, push you. That's your tribe. So if you're not sure who they are, what does that mean? And it's not necessarily they'll probably become your best friends, but it's not always, what you think is a great friend.
Yeah.
Are they really part of your tribe? Are they pushing you back? Are they helping you forward? And that's probably the best advice. And I got that advice a long time ago, but I never really realized it was good advice till later.
Yeah, I love that. I think that is what I hope. It's what I hope this show does. It's what I hope the FSHD Society does. That's what all the things that we can lean into together is that helping each other build their tribe.
Right. Right. And that is exactly what this is, isn't it?
Yeah.
You come full circle with that. It's like,
yeah. I mean, life is hard. I wish we could all say tomorrow we're going to wake up and it's going to get easier, but it's not. And
right.
We've got to help each other drive forward and push forward. And I love that. I love that. May 2023 be a year where we help each other find our tribe and propel each other forward. And I, for one, am really thankful that I feel like you are a part of my tribe, Tim.
There you go.
And
likewise. Right. And we don't spend a lot of time in the same room.
We don't.
Right.
I think we've only been in the same room over the last few years.
Right.
Maybe twice, But I absolutely count you among my tribe because I think you help make me better. I think you help make the community better, and makes all the hard work worth it. So
that's right.
And I think I would imagine a lot of people count you among their tribe because you're pretty awesome.
And that is the best compliment, to be a part of that. Yeah, because that's by choice. I know that was one of the pieces of the difference. It's by choice. You select those people to be in your tribe. Family, you don't get a choice.
That's true. Family can be hit or miss sometimes. We don't always get a choice, but well, may this be the year of strengthened tribes, and we all push each other and propel each other forward, and may there be great strides. And I am excited for who's going to be on the show and the conversations you're going to have and the work we're going to do together. And it's all about lifting each other up and making each other stronger and our lives just a little bit better. I always say we lean into the light, right?
Right.
There is a lot of light in the world. There's a lot of helpers in the world. And sometimes the darkness and the ugliness gets a little more, gets a louder microphone sometimes.
Yeah. Negativity.
In the news, the negativity
Mhm.
is loud, and you
Yeah.
just gotta push back against all that and bring some more light into the world and build up each other's tribe. I love it.
Right. Absolutely.
Well, this has been a great show to start off the year. I'm excited for where we're going to go together. And
yeah, me too. And thanks for flipping the mic around here and turning tables. This was fun. Flattering.
Good.
Flattering to be the person answering the questions. Yeah.
Well, and I have lots of good ones to ask in the year to come. So hopefully
Awesome.
everybody stay tuned in.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you all. Thanks for being here on another great episode of the FSHD Society Radio Show. Man, I kind of self-plugged myself. A great episode.
It was a great episode. It's okay. You can own it. You can own your awesome. It was a great episode. It was awesome.
Take care, all. This has been the FSHD Society Radio Show. Bye-bye.